Everyone doing, guys? Cody. I'm doing this question and answer session for Dr. Anna Kotova she's a senior lecturer at BCU, Birmingham City University. The questions that have been put to me are by criminology students on the punishment in a global context module. I'm a former prisoner. I was involved with gangs. I've been involved with gangsters, the criminal underworld, organised crime, drug dealing, you name it. I've been arrested for it and stuff. I say that to my shame and stuff, but I was a product of my environment, and yeah, no education, come from a broken home, not got a GCSE to my name, yeah, and grew up fascinated with crime, documentaries, serial killers, gangsters, gangs. Like an idiot, became involved in all of the above, and I've now out of crime. I now campaign for prison reform across the board, and I've become a better person because of it. Right, guys, I'm going to jump into the questions and stuff. I hope that I do these questions justice, and we'll go. First question: thinking about life pre-sentence and post-sentence, what effect do you think prison actually had? To be honest, I never really thought of the implications of my crimes. I first went to prison when I was actually 30 years old. The police have been after me for a very long time. Like I said, I'd had countless arrests under my belt, probably in excess of probably 80 arrests. Some for small crimes, some for very serious crimes. But I didn't really think about things. But when I was in prison, when you're locked behind your door for long periods of time and stuff, you reflect to stuff. Any problems you've got while you're in prison are magnified by about 1,000. You analyse things, you run things over in your mind, you go through everything with a fine-tooth comb. Can drive you up the wall, it really can. But I had to learn fast in prison. It's a very violent, very volatile place. When I first went to prison as a hardened criminal, I didn't even know if I got a telling myself. I was anxious, I was nervous, I was worried because I'd had rivalries, I'd worked on the doors, you know what I mean? I'd hurt people, I was involved with gangs, so you don't know if there's rival gang members. So you have to adapt. You've got the prison rules, and then you've got cons rules, as we call them. So like I say, but looking back, it dehumanized me as a person. It's very embarrassing when you land at the prison, you're strip searched and stuff, and like I say, you're spoken down to, and it's authoritative. And like I say, in strange ways, the first prison that I landed at, which is the only cat here in the Northwest, I spent 22, 23 hours a day locked in my cell. It made me reflect upon my crimes, my past, my history and stuff. And yeah, looking back now, prison's a selfish place, right? And I was selfish at the time. But what I take away from the whole situation now, looking back, is prison didn't reform me, prison didn't change me, right? Like I said, I've been in prison 3 times. On my last stretch, I had an epiphany and I opened my eyes. But I'll go into that further down because there's more questions to answer. But yeah, post-sentence, didn't really think about my crimes. Probably thought I was untouchable until I ended up in prison. I wasn't untouchable. The police got me on a witness intimidation, and that was it. I was then thrown into prison. It wasn't expected. I was remanded into custody. Yeah, hindsight's a great thing, looking back and stuff. But what do you think? What effect did prison actually have on me? I made criminal connections. It dehumanized me. I became more disenfranchised. On my last stretch, I was a cleaner, working 7 days a week for a measly £11.25. I felt worthless. I felt like a drain on society because obviously taxpayers are paying for us while we're in prison. Frustration, anger, and embarrassment as well because of what I put my family through. But I only found that on my 3rd stretch. I hope I've answered that question. I don't feel I've done that justice, but if you need me to elaborate, come back to me and I promise you I will do it justice. Right, second question. What reforms and recommendations for improvements would you make based on your experiences? Right, having been in prison and stuff, I've been in 2 prisons over 3 stretches. One was a private prison run by Sodexo Justice Services here in Salford. The other prison was Strangeways, which is Her Majesty's prison, or HMP Manchester. there's no consistency within the prison system. For me, there's a lot of prisoners that are locked up that want skills, training and education. Now, what we're seeing in prisons, right, prisoners getting out for less time, but you see record numbers of assaults, self-harm and suicides. It's part of life, unfortunately, in prison. And for me personally, because of all these assaults on staff and prisoner to prisoner and stuff, and these serious incidents that are taking place, right? Some of it's out of frustration, some of it's mental health. You've got a lot of prisoners in prison that want to be rehabilitated, right? Some of them just want to sleep the jail away, but there's also a lot of people that have got a lot of energy, and what they want mental stimulation. They want focus. They want to keep the mind occupied, right? So for me personally, what I would do is, if I was part of the Ministry of Justice, I would say, right, once you become what they call enhanced in prison, enhanced means that you've got IEP statuses in prison. You've got basic, entry, standard, and then you've got enhanced. Enhanced is pretty much where you've been good for 3 months, you've had no adjudications, or as we call them, nickings in prison. And for me, the prisoners that become enhanced, so it gives an incentive for you to behave, right? If you behave for 3 months, you will be put on courses. You'll get skills, training, education. You'll get a course that you can use on the outside that you want to actually participate in. Too many prisoners in prison do courses, not because they want to, they're not even interested in it, but it's to tick a box. It might be to help them get secure, release on temporary license, ROTL, home detention curfew, tag, things like that. So it's playing the game, that. But if you're going to talk to someone about reform, how about speaking to them, address them? What are their needs? What do they want to get out from their sentence? Don't dictate to them, ask them, right? Because like I say, if you give a prisoner that's been behaved skills, training, education, things that he can use on the outside, MVQs, things like that, so that when he gets out of prison, right, you give him all the tools, he gets out of prison, right, some of them will fall by the wayside and they'll fail, right, but the same amount, or like, I don't know what percentage it will be, but you would see a lot of prisoners being able to get a job with the skills, training and education that they've gained in prison, so that they can then thus break the cycle of crime, pay tax back into the system, which then saves the taxpayer money. You would see a reduction in violent incidents and positive drug tests within prisons, because, like I say, these enhanced prisoners and stuff, they do it the right way and stuff. They're staying out of trouble. They're rewarded then by they're going to classes, they're getting skills, they're getting training, they're getting education. Keeps the mind occupied, gives them a focus, right? The biggest thing in prison, the most dangerous thing in prison, honestly, not the violence, your own mind. In prison, you do a lot of reflecting, takes you to some very, very dark places. You start to analyze things. Any problems you've got whilst you're in prison are magnified by about 1 million. So if you're giving skills, training, education, you're out of your cell. You're not locked up for sustained periods of time. You go into class. You're getting focused. Your mind's ticking over. You get that mental stimulation that you need, or that you crave in some parts. Then you might be doing homework and stuff. Gives you focus, keeps your mind ticking. There's a light at the end of the tunnel. You know then, when you're upon release, that you can get with the skills, training and education you've received, you can then make something of yourself. You can break that cycle. There are courses in prison and stuff, but like I've alluded to, it's to tick a box. The prisoners are not interested in them. Some people study in prison, some people do it off their own back, just going to the library and getting books. Others sleep the prison away, others take drugs to alleviate the boredom and stuff off prison. But there are a lot of prisoners in prison that are locked behind the door for long periods of time. Mental health's a big problem. I'd like to see that get addressed as well. For me, people with mental health and stuff shouldn't be in prison. They should be psychiatrically evaluated, and then put into either mental health units or use community orders instead or something, depending upon the crime and everything else. I hope that answers that question in detail. Number 3, in your opinion, do prisons serve any real purpose, whether that be punishment, rehabilitate, or to isolate? Now, right, as someone that's been in prison, for me, the punishment of prison isn't there for punishment. Prisons should be places of reform. For me, once you've lost your liberty, losing your liberty, that's the punishment, right? Not having your freedom, that is it. right? Once you get over that, we need to look at reform and rehabilitation, right? Being locked in yourself for 22, 23 hours a day, depending on what prison you're in, what regime you're running and stuff, can make you worse and stuff like that. So like I say, with reoffending cost the taxpayer, guys, 9.5 to 13.5 billion pounds a year, right? There's another round of police cuts coming by 2020 to the tune of 700 million pounds, right? You've got fewer police on the streets. You've got community police stations closing down. You've got soaring crime rates, right? And prison doesn't work. So these criminals, these hardened criminals, for the most part, they're going to go back into society. And like I say, criminals will prosper in the environment where there's fewer police. Community police stations are closing down. The youths are running feral. Crime rates are soaring. Prison has to be the last line of defence. They should be given a blank check, and prisons should be places of education, skills and training. Sadly, there's no consistency throughout the prison system, and for that reason it won't happen. But for me, if I was a victim of crime, I would want it so that that person that went to prison, I'd want them to be reformed and rehabilitated so that when they came out of prison, they didn't go back to crime, they didn't resort back to crime, they didn't go and hurt another person. Because if they have, what was the point in prison if they've gone back to it, like many people do? So like I say, for me, I think the establishment, the government and stuff, because a lot of them are middle class and like speak with a plum in the mouth and stuff, their idea of prison is punishment, lock them up and throw away the key mentality. For me, that's someone that's been in prison and seen the boredom, the frustration, the anger, the helplessness, the mental anguish, and these people just rotting away and their minds rotting away and taking drugs to alleviate the boredom or to escape the reality of prison. For me, prison should be places of reform and rehabilitation. Unfortunately, I'm not an MP, I'm not empowered to change things, but if I was able to, I would overhaul the prison system for the better. But the Ministry of Justice, they know nothing of our world, guys. They know nothing of our struggles. They're born and they live in bubbles. Most of them, a lot of them are millionaires. They know nothing of our surroundings and stuff and our world, but yet they dictate to us. It's beyond mad, guys. It really is. It's beyond words for me personally. I hope that answered that question. Do you think our prisons serve any real purpose of rehabilitation, or prisoners leave prison debilitated? Like I say, a lot of people in prison will do a course, right? They don't want to do the course. The course is there to tick a box. They might want to get the category C move. They might want to get the cat D. It might be coming up to the release on temporary license, the home detention curfew and stuff. So they'll do courses for that reason. But do they serve purposes? There are some very dangerous, violent, volatile people in prison, but then you've got a lot of people in prison for non-violent offences, right? No offences against a lot of people in prison for not paying council tax, not paying driving fines, things like that, right? These people are not a danger to society. Prison, in my opinion, it doesn't work. It really doesn't serve a purpose. All it is an expensive hotel, right? Well, I say hotel loosely because it's an hotel in no way, shape or form. All it is, you've got obviously 1,600, 1,400 people in a prison. Human warehouses, guys, best way to put it. They don't work. They do not work. If it works, why do you think reoffending costs 9.5 to 13.5 billion pounds a year? Prison doesn't work. The Ministry of Justice are out of ideas, right? All we are is expensive. It's expensive to keep people in prison, and that's all we are. Expensive prisoners, that's it. If reform and rehabilitation isn't taking place, or the skills and training and education are not there, and people turning to drugs and everything else, people losing the will to live in prison, does it serve any purpose? No. It'll just make you dehumanised. You make criminal connections with fewer police on the streets and another round of cuts by 2020. You go back to crime, chances are you're going to get away with crime. Crimes are going uninvestigated, places are unpoliced, and crime rates are soaring. It's a green light for criminals across the board to commit crime. So yeah, prison doesn't serve a purpose for me personally, right? People let's look at sex offenders, right? Paedophiles, right? I was sexually abused as a child, right? I know that's quite a big thing to say, but it's a reality, right? Paedophiles in prison, no cause or anything like that. could stop them people. They get out of prison, they reoffend. For me, these paedophiles and stuff that are in the prison system, sex offenders and stuff, it's an illness, and it can't be, no course is going to stop them having sexual attractions to children. Like I say, punishment, the people who go punished and are completely innocent are prisoners' families as well. They suffer immeasurably, psychologically, emotionally, and not to mention financially. But like I say, the prison system, does it work? Honestly, does it serve a purpose? No, not really. If people came out of prison and didn't revert back to type and go back to crime and didn't carry on committing crimes, then yeah, absolutely, it'd work. But it doesn't work. And like I say, with fewer police on the streets and stuff, it's going to be lawless Britain. It's already lawless Britain. It's going to get worse. Mark my words. Right, guys, this is questions 1 to 4. I'm on a time limit on my phone, so I'm going to do another 4 questions now. Right, guys, join me for part 2.